Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 95, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today, John and I are talking rut hunts and the rut hunt we all envision, so stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Thursday to you. Not Wednesday, but Thursday. Sorry, we're a little behind on getting this episode out. Of course, was just getting back from my rut hunts, and it was just a little bit behind with getting back into the swing of things at the house, and of course back at the office at work. So had a lot of things to kind of catch up on, and just didn't quite get to this on Wednesday. So we're putting this out on Thursday. Today's a cool show. I'm not going to belabor this up front, just because John and I have a lot of kind of stuff to talk about. Of course, you guys have kind of been brought along on all my hunts, and I'll quickly do a brief recap at the onset of John and I's conversation, because honestly, he and I really haven't talked at all during the course of the 2 weeks while I was hunting, and really just we were both kind of grinding. And one of us had some good news, and one of us had some not such great news, and we will share both of those with you. John had an epic hunt. I think it's one of those ones, as I mentioned in the intro, one of those rut hunts that we all envision. And he definitely had one of those, and the story of that hunt is just kind of incredible, and how it all kind of came together. And he ended up seeing this hammer deer, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends. You have to listen to the podcast. Before we jump into all that, though, let's go ahead and take a quick second to talk about our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. We are brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you have ever used. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. And right now, when you visit wickedtreegear.com, use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and get a 20% discount on your Wicked purchase. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. The new Exodus Trek is the byproduct of all consumer voices who have been excited about what Exodus trail cameras have to offer, but just can't fit a $200 camera in their budget, and that is okay. A budget-friendly camera backed by the industry's leading warranty is now here. The Trek is $145. It has the same proprietary shell design as the Lift series camera, same 5-year warranty and unmatched customer service, 0.7 second trigger speed, photo, video, time-lapse, hybrid modes, all with a simple single line backlit LED display. You also get about 20,000 images on one set of lithium batteries. If you'd like to learn more about Exodus trail cameras, check them out at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And if you are digging what you see, you can use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and save yourself $20. We're also brought to you by Glacier Coolers, simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, or fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com, promo code TRUTH at checkout, and save yourself 20%. And now, without further ado, let's talk some rut hunting. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, John and I are doing a little catch-up on our rut hunts, or the hunting that we've done recently. We've actually not had any conversations during the course of our hunts. We shared just a couple text messages, only so we would be fresh when we showed up today. So my brother from another mother, how you doing?
What's up, buddy?
I'm doing okay, man. I tell you what, dude, I was pretty worse for wear when I got home on whatever day that was, Saturday night, I think I got home.
Yeah.
All year long we look forward to like those, handful of magical weeks, and I know you and I both hunt outside of those magical weeks. We hunt early season, late season, whatever it takes to get it done, right? But there's that time period we all kind of get super stoked about, and then you hit it, and it's like the first couple of days, it's like, dude, you're in it, and you're killing it, right? And it's just like you get all the energy in the world, and then you hit like day 5 of all day sits, and you're like, oh my god, it's like. And it just starts to grind, and then it becomes a marathon of endurance. and will at that point to try to get through it, and then you need like a day to recharge, and then you already miss it. So I don't know how you feel about the all day grinders, but man, that's how I felt. It's like I could get through like 5 or 6 days, and then after that I was like I needed to take like a morning off or something.
Yeah, no, you're right. But like in your situation, when you're on a traveled hunt like that, you're trying to make the most out of every single day. Yeah. And you're like, well, I'm here, so I might as well be in a tree stand, right?
Yeah.
But dude, you're right. After for me, it's like after the third day, all day sit, I noticed that my Facebook and Instagram usage is like through the roof.
Yeah, see, my battery had started to shit out on my phone, like, unfortunately. So it's like I could get through like the morning, and then it was like I needed to put it on battery saver mode to save it, because otherwise I was gonna be in trouble. Especially because, for the first part of the hunt, I was hunting by myself, back at some family property, so there wasn't really anyone around if something happened or whatever. It's like I needed to be able to get a hold of somebody. So I was trying to conserve some battery, so at minimum, I could text the wife and let her know that, that there was proof of life in the morning once I climbed into a tree, and that there was proof of life afterwards as well. So, but yeah, I'm the same way, man. I start perusing the social platforms during the course of the day. I did take a book and did not read one single page, but it went on every hunt with me for 2 weeks. Not one page.
Really?
Yeah. It was, I had all the best intentions in the world to actually start reading this book, because I've been wanting to read it. It's actually one, American Buffalo, I think it's called. Steve Rinella wrote it. I've been wanting to read that, picked it up, and it literally went in my pack for every hunt and did not read one single page. It looks like it's 50 years old now because it sat through rain, and it was in it was in my Ozonics pouch, and so I jammed the Ozonics unit inside that pocket, and it just like crinkle up the book. So it looks like it's gotten well worn. It'll look cool on the bookshelf, if nothing else, at this point. But so
it's got character now.
Yeah, exactly. It's got character. It looks like it's been used. I could lie and just say I read it and read the back, and read the back cover, and then say a couple words about what I saw on the back cover, and people feel like I read it, and so then I'll seem smarter than I actually am.
Yeah.
But I figured, so I've been super stoked to talk to you because, we shared a couple text messages. I saw your social posts and stuff like that. And so I'm super stoked to see how everything went down in Iowa. I, of course, did the daily rut log for my hunt, so I can just kind of give you the Cliff Notes version of what I had going on, and then I definitely want to dive into the Iowa story. But like I mentioned, I started off on the family property, my dad's piece. That was, at the beginning of the trip, went back there, hunted for 3.5 days by myself there. First year hunting on it, it was really cool. Had, the first set on it I got completely skunked. I didn't see anything. And I had high hopes for that particular, tree that I had picked out in that spot. The year prior, all the big deer on the property made their way through that specific kind of funnel. This year, not so much. I also noticed this year, man, the bucks were actually just kind of acting, I won't say acting differently because it wasn't their behavior, but their travel was different than the year before, which surprised me a little bit, the frequency of it. So that was a rough set, because I had some high hopes for that particular spot. And then I moved to like the back part of the property, which in all honesty, I haven't really spent much time on, like the one kind of like northern part of the property. But I knew that there had historically last year when I scouted had been some scrapes. So I went back there and set up, and was all set up in this super small tree. It was a killer, like little assassin's perch, man. It was a pretty sweet setup. And then shortly after first light that morning, I heard something kind of moving behind me, and I caught just a glimpse of the first buck that ran through. And then there was another one that came right behind it. It was one of the shooter 9-point that I wanted to try to get on. And I only saw him for like a second, and then he was about 30 yards away, but he was behind trees, and I couldn't get any shot opportunities at him. And then it was kind of odd because bucks shouldn't be together at that point. So there was a scrape that I noticed, like right that I passed on the way to this tree, and then there was a scrape in front of me. So I feel like those two kind of met at a scrape site or coming to a scrape, and the more mature, that 9 points, the more mature deer on the property pushed the other one off, or kind of ran him off, is what I'm kind of anticipating happening, because the first buck kind of like ran by, and then the second one, the 9-point, kind of like ran to the edge of the timber on this logging road, and then just stopped and walked, like after the other buck kind of took off. And then the rest of that day, that was like the 31st, I saw a couple other deer, some, another buck. And then I had seen a spot where deer kind of kept popping out, that I wanted to go check out. But I wasn't going to make a move quite yet because I was seeing deer. So I came back the next morning and hunted that same spot. I saw a deer early in the morning and saw another deer pop out. I guess it had been to my east, down the logging road out of this little piece of timber. And so since it was kind of like the last full day I was going to hunt the property, I was like, I'm going to go down and check this spot out. And this is where I screwed the pooch, man. Remember whenever we did what we're going to do differently this year, or what our plans are. And remember I said I was going to be more aggressive and I was going to try to pay attention to and hunt hot sign. Remember, do you recall that conversation? So,
Yep.
So I went down to check this spot out, and as I'm walking down the logging road, I wasn't really sure what I was going to see. I just kept seeing deer pop out of this one spot. And so I walked down. I'm like, hey, there's a rub. Kept walking. I was like, oh, there's another rub. And I looked in the timber at this little spot, and it's like, and like I said, this is a part of the property I've not explored a whole lot. It's like huge oak tree, and just like, there had to have been like 10 rubs, like all in this one little area that was probably no more than like 10, 15 yards, like in terms of like distance, right? It was just like this little, it was like the size of a basement, kind of, you know what I mean? And it was just littered with rubs, and there was probably like 4 scrapes within that area alone. And I was like, I think I just found someone's bedroom, because it was right outside this really thick area, or their little playground. And the thing was, I finally put 2 and 2 together on this property. Like, there's a camera that is probably about 150 yards south of that spot, and all the big deer I get on that camera, all the big deer on this property, I get pictures of them on this one particular camera, and they're always coming from the north, headed down past that camera, and this spot is directly north of that camera. So I think I figured out like where the bigger deer are living and calling home. So, if I'm holding true to what I said I was going to do, I would have, dropped all my stuff, hung up some sticks, jumped in my saddle, and hunted that. But I did not.
But I didn't.
But I didn't. Yeah, I ended up hiking down, and actually went and sat the Wicked Greens food plot, because I wanted to check out the camera down there, because I did have bucks kind of showing up on one of the cameras down there as well. I got down there, did some scouting, and the day got late, and it was like I had all my stuff on my back, and I was like, man, I'm just not going to make it back up to that tree in time before it starts to get too late to get hung up. So I just need to get into a tree here near the food plot and just kind of see what happens. And a couple does came out, but no bucks showed up. And that was the end of the hunt at my dad's at that point. The next day I jumped in the truck, went to Ohio. And so the hunt at dad's was cool, saw some bucks. I learned more about the property that I think I'm much better positioned for a hunt for next year. And to me, that's kind of like part of what I needed to get done on this property. It was like I just needed to hunt it and spend some time on it. That way I have a game plan for next year, and learn a little bit. And then jumped in the truck, drove to Ohio, and checked my camera. I know we did share some text messages over this, man, but I had a couple deer. I texted you a couple of the deer that I had on camera when I checked them, and your response was shoot them. So
shoot them.
So that I was attempting to do that. And the first day I passed an 8-point. He came, at very first light. I saw him at 5 yards, had a shot opportunity at 15, was at full draw on him, until I kind of gauged him to figure out how old he was. And, my goal was to try to shoot a 3.5-year-old. And I really wanted that one of those 2 bigger deer that I'd text you. And so I drew back on him until I, realized he was probably just a 2.5-year-old, and then let him go. Had a couple really good sits there, man. I can't complain about the hunt out there. I was in deer pretty much every day. Saw bucks, I think, every day but one. I was set up on a doe bedding area on a travel corridor between two doe bedding areas. Mm-hmm. So I was in deer pretty much every day. The biggest thing that I did, again, I didn't follow my own advice, which earlier in the year I said I was going to be aggressive. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking of making a move to a tree that was just to, I guess it would be to the west of me, maybe 30 yards. I just needed to get on the other side of this like old logging road that was just overgrown and I couldn't see across, because it seemed like, that was where I had a camera set up over on that side, and I was getting that's where all the buck pictures were at. And it always seemed like when I saw deer, when I saw bucks, even the 2 years ago when I hunted this spot, they were always already kind of in the timber behind me, like in the brush. And it was like they were making the turn like 30 yards before me, to kind of dip back in there, because it does open up just a little bit where I was set up at, just to kind of avoid being in the open. And I forget which day it was, but I was like, you know what, I need to move over there and get set up over there. But the trees are so small that it was hard to find a tree. So I didn't get set up over there. And then, of course, I think I texted you that night as well. I saw a hammer 8 point that rolled through. And if I would have took my own advice and moved that set that first night that I thought about it, I would have been in position to get a shot at that 8 point the following night. So again, not taking my own advice came back to bite me in the ass. And I ended up moving the next day and did have an 8 point come in. But again, he was a 2.5-year-old, so let him go. Had another buck walk in. And that was the last day that I was there. I guess I had 2 bucks come in that day and a handful of does. And then I had to jump in the truck and kind of leave and come back. So overall, it was a good hunt. Saw lots of deer. Saw bucks. Saw shooter bucks. It was just one of those things where I didn't make the move when I should have made the move to put myself in the chips. And so that's the hard lesson learned of hunting public land when you don't necessarily have everything figured out to a degree. You know what I mean? But I can't complain about it, man. I'm going back out over Thanksgiving to hunt a couple days and try to get back after it again. So hopefully, things turn out a little bit better on that part of the trip. But if I had to end the hunt, or if the Ohio season ended today and I didn't get a chance to go back out, it's like I'm happy with how it kind of went, and I learned some good, valuable information for the next time I head out there. So, and I know I have a hot spot because I'm in deer every year that I sit there. So that's kind of my recap hunt, man. It was a lot of fun, a lot of hard miles, a lot of long all day sits. But I come home with tags in pockets still. So that is the rut story for Clint as of now.
As of now.
Yeah,
gotcha.
As of now.
To be continued.
Yes, to be continued, and hopefully we write a little bit better of an ending. But I'm more interested to hear about first, if you don't have any questions, I'm more interested to hear what you have going on in Iowa.
Well, what about, Chad? I mean, that's the one nice thing, though, about a destination hunt is being on a destination hunt with a buddy.
Yeah. So
at least you get your spirits lifted each day at the end of the hunt. You talk about either what you saw or didn't see, you know, and the I guess the hunt camp camaraderie. You know what I mean? That's always a cool deal.
Yeah, man. And dude, I'm looking forward to coming out to Iowa to hunt with you. I feel pretty fortunate, that I have some good hunting buddies, you know what I mean? Because it's hard to share camp with people, you know what I mean? And that's one.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you have to find the right people that you mesh well with, you know what I mean? Especially when you're doing some of these public land hunts and you just know the likelihood of getting run over by deer is just not real high, you know what I mean? So it's like you're going to have days where you get shut out, you know what I mean? And you can't, you don't want to be hunting with a dude that comes back all pissed off when he doesn't see any deer. I mean, that's hunting. That happens, you know what I mean?
So, a little side story. I went to a casino one night, one of those deals where you get on the boat and you kind of like you're on the water for a little bit, then you come back, to the bank. But I went and I only brought like $100, and I thought, well, if I lose $100, then I won't be too terribly mad at myself, and you know what I mean. I'll write it off as $100 of fun.
Yep.
So I ended up winning like $700 or $800 that night. Nice. And the other 3 guys that I went with, their total loss between the 3 was like $4,000.
Ooh, that hurts.
So the 2.5 hour ride back home, I mean, I'm like giddy as all hell. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, I won $700. I'm thinking I'm loaded.
Yeah.
And it's like all somber because they all lost money. So they're like, shut up, Mulligan.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear about your winnings.
Shut up with your stupid happiness.
Yeah. So
yeah, but yeah, dude.
Yeah. So it but I tell you, whenever you come hang out with me for hunting next year, on Friday nights we'll be watching Gold Rush.
Nice. Like it.
Thursday nights, depending on what the Guidos in Jersey are doing, but we might be watching Jersey Shore.
Okay. Nice.
That's my guilty pleasure, dude.
Nice.
Like, I watch Jersey Shore to like feel better about myself.
Exactly.
And then I watch Gold Rush because that's my thing. If the shit hits the fan, I'm getting a dozer and a mining some kind of a
mineral of some sort,
a lease somewhere,
right?
Some claim, and I'm gonna go look for gold.
I love the plan. It's awesome. Yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to come out and hunt with you. And Chad, dude, he's one of the best dudes to go hunt with because he's fun. Yeah, he's fun, and he's just a grinder, dude. Like he just gets after it. But the dude has like...
He's a rodeo cowboy.
Yeah,
I mean, dude, you ain't going to outgrind no rodeo, man.
No, exactly. But the dude has the worst luck. So this one quick story about like what he had going on. So we had some cameras set up when we went out and scouted this past summer or spring, and then we went back out in the summer to kind of do a second scout. And he had some cameras hung up, right? So when we went out in... I guess it was August when we went back out to kind of check things and, hang some additional cameras. One of the places that we went, they kind of came in and like dozered a bunch of roads, and they were sectioning some of this property off for sale. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer because some of these roads kind of changed how the deer were going to move and stuff like that. And so Chad was like, well, I'm going to hang cameras in here anyway because there was a couple different pieces that he wanted to, kind of scope out what the caliber of deer were. So he hung those cameras. And then we went to scout this other piece, and I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast where it's like we might have to use a boat to get in. And first off, like I took the canoe all the way there, and we never even used it because, dude, I got out there. We've had so much rain that the river was angry. Like, and there was no way on God's green earth I was getting into a canoe to hunt this year. Like, it just wasn't happening. Like, it was just there was safety concerns. We'll just put it that way. And so this one piece we didn't get to scout. And so when we were going out to hunt, one of his plans was like, hey, I'm going to check this piece out like first thing, like the first kind of morning, or not the first morning. I think he went and sat up in like the first spot. And whenever he got there, he went to go pull his cameras and like hang a set. And when he got there, that property had been bought, was posted, and all of his cameras were gone. So like, well, the one camera was gone, and he didn't even go check the other ones because there was posted signs when he went to kind of walk the path to get into like where he hung his cameras. So chalked up 3 cameras to a loss, and he was now out of like the spot that he had like originally scouted. Goes to this other piece that we thought we were going to have water access. He found another way in and went to the first place, didn't see any deer, hung a camera, went and hung a second set. I think he saw a couple deer that evening, but then ended up went back to that the next morning and literally had this, he has it on film too. There's like this grandpa with like 2 kids walking through, like just straight up bushwhacking the brush on their way to him, just making all kinds of noise. And then all of a sudden the grandpa's like, well, I think I see foot tracks. And so he starts following the foot tracks, doesn't ever see the stand, and walks right up to the tree and looks up, and Chad's got the camera on him. And the guy about crapped his pants. Like, oh my God, there's someone in that tree. And so that was his like other hunt that he had going on. So then he was like, you know what? He's like, I'm going to go this other route, and where we were going to go in over the water to make the access really short. He's like, I'm just going to hike it, dude. And the dude hiked like 1.75, like a mile and a quarter in, right? In the dark, gets in there, hangs a set, light comes up, and there's literally a dude 100 yards from him. Literally like 100 yards away, a guy set up in a tree stand. He's like, you gotta...
No way.
Yeah, dude, you think you walk a mile and a quarter in somewhere, or a mile and 3/4 in somewhere, you think you would be pretty safe to not like run into people, but there was a guy set up like 100 yards away. Chad attracts people. Like anything I've learned about Chad hunting with him, if you go hunting with him, people will find him in the woods. Doesn't matter how far he hikes or where he goes, like he will have multiple encounters with people. So that was kind of brutal. And the odd thing about him, do you use a headlamp when you go in?
The only time I use a headlamp is if I'm going deep into public and there's so much deadfall that you end up making more noise without a lamp than you do with a lamp. Right. And when I say I have a lamp on, the lamp is solely pointed at my feet only.
Yeah. Yeah. No, see, that's how I go in, but I use one every day. Like Chad never uses a light ever. And I don't understand how people do that. Like I can't see anything if I don't have a headlamp. But and dude, like I said before, he's a grinder, man. So it's always good going to hunt with him. Like he's a like you said, he's a rodeo dude, former Division I football player. Like the dude's just a beast. It's like he glides across the ground. Like going to scout with him is not fun because that dude just takes off, and it's like I'm like sprinting to try to keep up with him essentially. You know what I mean? Because he's a big dude. You know, he's got a long stride. Dude, I hunted a set last year that he hung, and when we were hunting this other piece of public, and it took me 3 sticks to get to his top 2 because he's so freaking tall. He has him spaced out so far. But he's a lot of fun to hunt with, man. It's always a good time with him. Unfortunately, he saw some deer, he saw some bucks, but it took him a few days to kind of get some things kind of situated and figured out because he was running into people. But enough of that, man. Enough of the Ohio hunt, dude. I want to hear. To just start me from the beginning, like your rut hunt since the last time we talked. So what was happening in Iowa? Before we continue our conversation, let's talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. Hardcore deer hunters need tools that can keep up. We don't baby our gear, taking whatever Mother Nature dishes out. Check out Wicked Tree Gear hand saws and pull saws at wickedtreegear.com. Use the promo code TRUTH to save yourself 20% on your next purchase with free ground shipping. And get a saw that's tough enough to work as hard as you hunt.
Okay, so I had a bunch of cameras running on my lease down the road, and I was hunting a lot on my personal property. I had a really good, to my knowledge, he's still running around out there. I haven't done a card pull in 4 or 5 days. There's a double beam buck that I was trying to actually get with my landowner's tag, and he was starting to get really, really close to daylight, and I'm thinking, man, one of these cold mornings is going to be just enough to get him going to bed late or getting up early, something like that. So I was hunting on a green field, and things just weren't playing out there. Then we started getting a whole bunch of rain here, right around Halloween in the first part of November, and I'm thinking, man, this sucks,
Right.
So finally, one of my good friends, Tyler Flynn from Wisconsin, he came down, and we were checking out a couple of trail cameras. He got here, and we really didn't know where to go, so I said, let's go check a couple of cameras and see what's been moving the last 24, 48 hours, and maybe that'll give us a sign as to where we want to go tonight, looking for the latest intel. And the double beam buck had showed up on the lease, which is about 1.5 miles from my house. So I'm like, that's weird. So I look at the camera, and he's daylight walking on October 29th at 5:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, you punk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've been trying to kill you at my house, and here you are day walking over here. So then I went back to my house, and I said, you know what? I'm going to pull those cards too. I just pulled them yesterday, but I want to pull them again. So I swapped out SD cards. What I found out that it took him 5 hours to go from my house to the lease, and then 5 hours later, he was back at my house. So 5 hours to do 1.5 miles. So I'm guessing, I don't know exactly the far ends of his loop, but I would venture to say that my house and the lease are pretty close to the ends of his loop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fair.
Yeah, so I'm like, this guy's just tearing me apart. So Tyler and I started looking at the aerials and looking at the topos, and we identified this little finger of timber that could very well be on his way. It could be a nice transition area. If deer are going if they go from my house to the lease, this is a logical place that they could be coming from, on north winds. South winds, we got no clue, but on north winds. So we had a bunch of north winds coming in. So we hung the set, hunted a couple of days, and we saw some decent bucks, but they were really far away in the field, and there's some standing corn out there, and we didn't have any shooters. We had does, covered up all over. So I ended up shooting a doe one morning, and it was nice just to go ahead and kind of break the ice of the season and everything.
Right.
So Tyler had to go back to Wisconsin, and a couple of days later, a good friend of mine, Billy C. from Wildest Dreams TV, he had already tagged out. He lives north of Des Moines. He had already tagged out, so he called me and said, hey, I don't have a tag. I want to come down there and run a camera and sit in a tree with you. I have a feeling you're going to kill something in the next couple of days. So I'm like, yeah, dude, come on down. I love hunting with guys,
Right.
And So he came down and he's like, "What? Let's check out what you got going on." And so we sit this one stand that evening, and he's like, "What are you thinking?" I'm like, "I think we need to go back there tomorrow. Same stand." And he's like, "Yeah, dude. I agree. Let's rock and roll. We got a good win for it."
All right.
So now we're on November 8th.
So which stand is this? And where?
This is on. It's on the lease. It's on the west side of my property over there. Which it's if you go directly east, you have 300 yards of alfalfa, and then you have 3 acres of standing corn, and then you have 2 acres of wicked greens. They're all kind of in a line, and the timber is all around us, on the outskirts of the property.
Is this the same stand that you hunted with Tyler, or is this a different stand?
Same stand.
Same stand. Yep. Okay. All right. Got it.
Yep. Same stand. And so we get out there in the morning and did a little misses. I freshened up some scrapes on the way there, which I love doing. I had to walk past the scrapes, so you might as well freshen them up with some doe pee. And we get up in the tree, get settled in, and it's just getting to that, civil light, and you can start to, I think I could see my peep sight. I could possibly shoot something at this point,
Right.
And we see one little buck, little 2-year-old, comes cruising by, but he's kind of in a hurry. And I look back at Billy and I'm like, dude, this is a good sign. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not walking. He's cruising,
Yep.
So I said, dude, it's time to wake up the woods. So I crashed the antlers together. 2 bucks come in, a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I almost felt bad because the 2-year-old almost got his butt whooped by the 3-year-old.
Nice.
And the 2-year-old finally had a brain and was like, I'm getting out of here, So he boogered out, and the 3-year-old stayed there and, all bristled up and licking his chops with his ears pinned back. He circled him for a little while. Then he boogered out. So I crashed the antlers together again. Another buck comes in, and we got this one on video where literally it's like clink, clink, clink. There's a buck.
Wow.
I mean, it was just crazy. They were just busting. Cause like I said, I'm looking at timber edges all around me, with the exception of the standing corn that's way out in front of me. So I can't see, they all must have been really, really close to the field edges. And as soon as I started rattling, they poked their head out into the field edge,
Wow. So let me ask you this, how often is rattling something that you've had good responses to in the past or no?
If I had to take my entire bow hunting career, I would give rattling a 10% success rate. Maybe even 5%. Overall.
Right.
On particular, if I could pick and choose the days, then I could say, okay, let me pick 5 days over the last 10 years, and I had 65% success.
Right.
So that's my thing is if it works, then for the next 48 hours, I'm going to do it every 30 minutes.
Right. Okay.
And so after it had worked the 3rd time, I'm just like, today's that day.
Yeah.
Today's the day of the season.
Yep.
There will not be another day like this. We did a couple of tending grunts, and it was such a nice, it's such a nice setup because we can see an open field, but we're actually kind of sitting in the timber.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do some tending grunts, and you always want to create that realistic impression, right?
Right.
If I was sitting in a ground blind in the dead center of the field, I don't think it would have been as effective. But we could do some tending grunts and some rattling, and those deer were thinking, okay, these bucks and does are just inside the timber, that we can't see them, right?
Right.
So we do a couple of tending grunts, another buck comes out. I rattle again, and that 3-year-old comes back again.
He's fired up.
And I'm just blown away. So we're up at this point, we're at 6 bucks, and 3 of them we've seen twice.
And so what time is it now at this point?
It's not even 7:45.
Jeez.
This is all in the first 45 minutes.
That's amazing.
I mean, the longest we ever went was maybe 2 minutes without visually seeing a deer.
Wow.
So Billy's a licensed Iowa hunter. So in Iowa, you have to, if you're going to do any calling or rattling, you have to have a hunting license, you know?
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep, it's kind of interesting. Basically, if you're contributing to the hunt, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they can run a camera without a license and be a non-resident or whatever, you know, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to do any calling or rattling, you know, you got to have a license. So, you know, he's a licensed Iowa hunter. And anyway, so he blows on a grunt tube. And this buck pops out from 300 yards away. And he's like, do you want me to grunt at him again, or do you want to let this play out naturally? And I'm like, no, screw that, dude. Like, the grunt is what brought him out of the timber. And he's starting to walk away. Grunt at him again. So he grunts at him again, and he just locks up, looks our way, and starts running in like Michael Johnson from 300 yards. Nice. And he's just charging in. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Probably 145-inch 8-pointer, 4-year-old, and we're thinking, you know, he's gonna give me a perfect 20-yard shot right inside this alfalfa field, which is genuinely it's the way that tree stand was set up. It was set up for that shot. At the last second, when he's still about 20 yards north of me, he turns hard right and turns into the timber. And he's 20 yards away, and he's broadside, directly north of me. And I have no shot. Zero shot. I mean, I'm squatting down. I'm looking for a little 2-foot by 2-foot hole, somewhere.
Yep.
And I don't have one. So I'm like, the only chance we got is to let him keep going, looking for this buck and doe. And then we can try to call him back. Maybe we can get him back to come back into the field, because then once he's in the timber, he can see what's in the timber. He's going to have to bust out into the open field to see if maybe they're out in the field now. Well, we try calling back at him, and the game's up. You know what I mean? I think he knows what's up. So instead of further educating this deer, we just have to let him go and hope maybe he'll come back in on his own. He doesn't. About an hour goes by, and we haven't seen another deer. So it was kind of that magical hour where it it's like walking into a room and turning the light on and just watching like cockroaches scatter everywhere, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
We literally walked in and just turned on the light for an hour. And I think one of the analogies that I used in like one of my interviews is I said it was, and I steal this from my buddy Mike Marler. He just won the World of Outlaw Championship, but in one of his interviews, it was perfect. He said it's kind of like the music's about to stop, and they're looking for a chair.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yep.
And that's kind of the way those bucks were acting. They were like, "I got to find a girl. I got to find a girl. I got to find a girl." You know.
Yep. I've only ever experienced anything like that one time, and it was actually on that same piece in Ohio 2 years ago, where there was one day in particular where it's like every time I had deer grunting behind me, and every time they would grunt and I would respond, one would run in, and it was the same thing. It was literally like an hour. It was like the first hour. It was just like it was on. Yep. You know, I ended up killing my deer that day. You know, in the afternoon, he came in on a grunt, but it was the other days there was activity. But like I know what you're talking about, man. It's just like it was like anything I did, they responded to it, which is just insane.
I could have played Kanye West music and they were going to come in. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what sound we made. I mean, dude, we were snort wheezing, we were grunting, we were short tending grunts, we were long grunts, we were rattling, we were crashing horns. It didn't matter what we did, and they were coming in.
Wow.
It was just so awesome.
And which day was this?
This was on November the 8th.
8th, okay.
And November 8th of 2017 is the date in which I shot the biggest buck I've ever shot in my life, and I did not recover.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was in the back of my head all morning long. is I'm like, well, at least now November 8th has a little bit better memory to it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm also thinking, you know, we talk about target panic and stuff like that. That was also in the back of my head all day, is I'm like, what if a buck comes in? What if I shoot and wound a buck? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So nonetheless, Billy, he leans over and he goes, hey, I don't mean to be like a total jerk or nothing here, but you're kind of like Mr. Wicked Tree Gear, and you don't have a shooting lane.
Right.
And it's one of those deals where I'm like, it just didn't seem like a spot that deer would come through, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why a shooting lane was never cut there.
Right.
Anyways, I said, you know what? It's been about an hour since we've seen anything.
I feel a little foreshadowing happening here.
Yeah. I said, this could be a bad move. But let's get out of the tree, because I want to go get a pole saw. And let's get out of the tree. So we went to the local Casey's general store. We loaded up on some biscuits and gravy and some donuts and hot coffee.
Nice.
And we came back to my house, relaxed just for a half hour or so. And I said, all right, it's 11 o'clock. Let's go. So we grab the pole saw. We go back to the stand, and he's trimming out a couple of lanes. And then I went ahead and climbed up in the stand to, hey, that branch. Yep. Go to the next tree, 3 branches up, cut that branch. You know what I mean?
Right.
Making sure that I've got everything that I need, for my set. And so we've got everything done. He climbs up the tree and brings the pole saw up with him. And, he's like, hey, there's a branch above you that I want to cut. And I'm like, do you really need to? And he's like, yeah, 'cause if a buck comes across the field, I'm not going to be able to get good video footage of him running all the way across the field.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, whatever, if you need to cut it for your camera angle, like, it doesn't matter to me. We're probably 26 foot up anyways.
Right.
So at this point, I don't worry about cover that much, mm-hmm. when you're up there a pretty good ways. So I said, screw it, cut it. So I grab his camera, and I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to do a little bit of filming, and I'll film him cutting, get some slow motion, the wood shavings coming off the branch. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
We might need to stretch that out and make that 1 minute of an episode, right?
Right.
Cinematic effect.
Right.
Well, as I'm getting ready to hit the record button and start cutting, he gets through the branch. Now, 9 times out of 10, when you cut a branch, it falls straight down, gravity. Right. But if the branch has a whole lot of growth on one side of it and none on the other side, when they start to fall, they will twist and roll,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this branch is about a 3-inch caliper branch. It twists and rolls, and it just rocks my bow.
Oh, geez.
Just slams my bow. My bow's hanging on a bow hanger, because we left everything in the tree, right?
Right, right.
So I've got an arrow knocked in everything. It slams my bow, hits my arrow, knocks my bow off the hanger. And I did one of those things like out of the corner of my eye where I see it falling, and I just threw my arm out there, like in this feeble attempt to catch this bow. Well, my finger goes like right underneath the limb, and one of my fingers goes inside the cam.
Jeez.
And I catch my bow before it falls. And I'm like, holy,
right.
I'm like, oh my God, that's a close one. Like, that would have just destroyed my stuff,
Right.
So Billy's like, oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He's like, is your bow okay? I'm like, yeah, I think it's okay. I was like, I think it just knocked the arrow,
right.
off the nock. No big deal. And I look down at the ground. I see my arrow laying there. I'm like, hey, I got 4 more in my quiver. No worries. I pull another arrow out, knock it, set it on the shelf, go to flip up my HHA rest. And I'm like, something doesn't look right. So, like on a drop away rest, you got the 2 prongs, and, the arrow goes in between that fork,
Yep.
Well, one of my fork sections is snapped off, because when that limb hit the arrow, it put so much pressure on the arrow that it's so cold out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
it snapped that plastic flip up deal. And I'm like, it'll still hold my rest in the middle. You know what I mean? It's still doing what it needs to do. As long as I don't try to shoot like I'm from Compton.
Right.
It'll still hold my arrow right.
Right.
And, but then I'm like, something doesn't seem right. My arrow, my rest is actually bent.
Oh,
geez. That bar that, that holds that fork, it's actually bent down as well. Now, disclaimer, this is not a knock against HHA rest. This was a 4-inch caliper branch that hit my rest square.
Yeah. I mean,
there's not a rest out there on the market that's not going to be either be off or bent or damaged or broken or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, getting hit by
just an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, getting hit by a fallen branch is cause for damage. You know what I mean? So no matter what it is.
So he's like, dude, so you're not good? I'm like, no, I'm not good. Like I can't shoot this thing. I can physically move my rest like a 1/4 of an inch side to side.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And I said, dude, no, dude, he's like, oh crap. He's like, oh my God, John, and I felt so bad for him. Cause he's like, dude, I'll buy you another rest. Like, I'm like, dude, it could have happened to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it didn't matter which one of us cut that branch. It was going to fall the way it did. And it is what it is. I said, so instead of worrying about that, we just need to get down and get to a bow shop immediately.
Right.
So this part I'll do kind of fast because that's how fast I was driving.
Right.
We've got to go about 30 miles north to the bow shop. So while I'm driving to the bow shop, I'm on the phone with HHA, getting a new rest. They're a marketing partner, and they sent a new rest. And what they're going to do is they're going to send a new rest to the bow shop.
Right.
And I was just grabbing one off the shelf.
Right.
Yep. And so the bow shop, I call him and I said, hey, I'm not trying to be that guy, but are you extremely backed up right now? He's like, yeah, I got about 6 people in here right now. I'm like, well, all right. So I'm thinking we're just going to grab the rest and we're going to do it ourselves.
Right.
Well, in the 30 minutes it took to get there, those customers were just there picking up stuff and they left. So when I walk in, he knows what I'm there for. He grabs my bow, throws it on, bam. He presses it, gets my rest on there. They've got the marks on the rest, so we were able to get me probably 95% where it should be.
Right.
So then I go into the range, shoot 20 and 30 yards, and double check, make sure that I'm completely dialed in. I have to make a few tweaks, a couple of sight tweaks, like 1/8 of an inch, kind of thing.
Right.
So, 1/8 of an inch, by the target, not on the sight
itself, right.
So we get sighted in and I'm good. We haul butt back to the lease. We get up in the tree. It's 2:00. So we did all of this in basically an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Broke my bow and got it repaired and back in the tree
Nice.
in an hour and 45. Get up in the tree. Nothing is happening. There's no birds. There's no squirrels. And Billy's like, oh, my man, I am so freaking sorry. Like, what if the deer were moving midday today and we were gone and we were jerking around? And, we walked into the tree stand, then we walked out of the tree stand, then we walked back in again. And you start thinking about what damage have you done for entry, exit, and all that kind of crap. And I'm like, dude, tomorrow's another day, man. No biggie. Like, I had fun this morning. That was the best day I've ever seen in the woods,
Yep.
Whatever. I was like, I'm not letting this ruin my day, The old John probably would have beat himself up about it and gotten all pissed off and just had a horrible day. But I'm just like, dude, I pointed out to him. I said, man, I'm sitting in Iowa. I'm in a tree stand. I'm with my buddy. We had the best morning I've ever had in my life, and I never even flung an arrow. So screw it. Let's rock on. So we're just committed to sitting there till dark and rip off a grunt, just a blind grunt, and a buck pops out of the timber 300 yards away on the north side of this standing corn. And so we throw another grunt at him, and he's like a man on a mission. He's not coming to us. Well, what we realize is what he was doing was he was going downwind of 3 does that were standing in this alfalfa field. He had to go scent check them first. Once he confirmed that they were not in, he literally turns 180 degrees and starts hammering directly straight back towards us where we were tending a doe, right?
Mm-hmm.
He comes in and I'm like, finally, a buck is actually going to do what he's supposed to do. He's going to come right down along this field edge and give me an 18, 20-yard shot, you know. And I'm on the D loop. I'm ready to go, getting ready to draw, and he stops. I'm like, oh no, like what are you doing? What? You just need to walk 5 more yards, and so I can kill you. He turns 90 degrees and walks into the timber, and I'm like, oh no. And then I'm like, wait a second. He's gonna walk right into that freshly cut shooting lane that was literally just cut 4 hours ago. Stopped him right in the fresh cut shooting lane, and about a 22, 23-yard shot. I had my, I was dialed at 20, so I just put my 20-yard pin right on him and watched the Luminok zip through him, man. Complete pass through, liver and lung. He donkey kicks and he bolts north for about 20 yards, and then he stops. And I'm just watching his tail flick like crazy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm like, go down. And he takes a couple of steps, flips his tail, takes a couple of steps. And when I say flip his tail, I'm not talking about that when deer flip their tail to kind of acknowledge that everything's cool in life, you know?
Right.
This was flipping his tail like, oh God, I'm hurt. And then I lose him. I can't see him anymore. And I can't hear anything, and I stay kneeling down on my stand. I'm like, I haven't heard him bed down. I haven't heard him fall over. I was thinking he'd fall over and give some last minute kicks or whatever, but I haven't heard anything. And I'm like, I don't like that I didn't hear anything.
Right.
So we decide, you know what, let's just get down and walk away. Now, in the back of my head, I'm telling myself, he's dead already, Mm-hmm. I watched my shot. Like I know he's dead. But in the words of a very good friend of mine, Shane Wiest, he always says, well, if they're dead and you wait an hour, they'll just be more dead when you get there.
It sounds like something Shane would say.
Yeah. So I said, I was like, well, screw it, man. We'll just wait. So we went home to watch the footage and grab something to eat, and we played a little trick on my wife. I was like, you got to watch this video footage of this buck that came in. Super awesome encounter. So she's sitting there watching the footage, and then she watches this buck walk into a shooting lane, and she's like, why didn't you shoot that buck? And then you hear me on the video go, meh. And then the arrow smokes the buck.
Right.
And then she's like, you ass.
That's awesome.
So she's like, I was wondering why in the heck you hadn't shot that buck yet,
Right.
She's like, Jesus, that's a great buck. So we go, I'm like, well, let's go ahead and head back out there. It's been about 2.5 hours. We walk outside.
Before we go,
snowing like crazy.
What time did you release your arrow? What time did this buck come in? You said you got
5
back
5
o'clock. Okay, because you got back in the tree like around 2-ish.
Yep.
From the bow shop and
Yep.
stuff, and you were there for a couple hours, and he comes in at 5. All right.
Yep. Which one of the reasons why I know exactly what time I shot him was one part I left out. When we came back from the bow shop, we hung a trail camera on a hay bale, on a round bale, on the corner of this field. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just curious to see what other deer have been cruising through here. I've seen a couple of deer come out of this corner of the timber. So let's just put a camera up here and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So we actually got a trail camera picture of that buck.
Oh, that's cool.
3 minutes before I killed him.
That's cool.
And it took its picture at 5:02.
Okay.
So I shot him, 5:05 or something like that. So we go back out about 7:30, 8 o'clock to start tracking him. And like I say, it's snowing like you wouldn't believe. And we've got phenomenal blood. There's never a gap in the blood. It's just pouring.
That's what you look for.
Out of, he's leaking on both sides. Mm-hmm. And he went about 50 yards through the timber, and then he started angling towards the open field, and then there's no blood. And I'm like, what the heck? Now, I don't know if you've ever had a headlamp on when it is snowing like crazy at night. Everything that you look at in the open fields looks like you're in the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah, it looks like
doing warp speed.
Yeah, it looks like you're in Spaceballs doing ludicrous speed.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. So, and it's like vertigo. Like, it makes me dizzy, you know, like really, really dizzy. So I go to look across the alfalfa field, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I'm going to throw up, you know? So I'm like, this is so weird. And Billy's like, he probably just went along this grass, and that's why we're not seeing blood. He's like, I'm going to keep walking down this way. And another buddy of mine had come over to help with the track. And he's standing there, and I said, 85-90% of the bucks I've ever shot, they have all turned and at some point made an attempt to go back in the direction that they came from.
Right.
It's like, when you're hurt, I want to go home. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm like, if that buck is starting to turn up towards this open field, and if he's doing what 85% of the bucks have done in the past, that means he went across this, he made an attempt to go across this alfalfa field. So I said, I'm going to walk across the alfalfa field. So we turned to go across the alfalfa. There he is, laying 10 yards in front of us. And he's already stiff as a board, covered in snow. I told Billy, I'm like, that buck was dead before we even got out of the damn tree, you know?
Yep.
So there he was, laying, slapped a tag on him. And I did get to bring my youngest son, Kyler, with me. So that was the first recovery he's ever been on of any deer.
Nice.
And it's fun watching some of the footage because I couldn't really see him. But the film footage, just seeing the smile on his face in the background,
Yeah.
He was really digging it.
That's cool, man. Dude, when you sent me that text, man, I think I said, "Holy shit, John killed a hammer." I think was my response to whenever when I said something to Chad. And I just started laughing. Because, man, you've had some crap luck, like in the past, last season, beginning of this season. And I know you could have decent buck last year, at the end of the year and stuff like that. But, man, you've had some great deer that you've had encounters with and that you've just had some bad luck on, dude. And there isn't a guy that deserves to put a hammer down and have that kind of hunt, especially with the entire story, any more than you do, dude. So congratulations, man. It's like you deserve it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, man. So
yeah, and that's the thing, this is my third season hunting out here in Iowa. And, the first year I was out here, I came to full draw on a 70 class deer, and he just never presented a shot. Last year I had a 73 deer that I came to full draw on, and I just ethically, I didn't like the angle. He was quartered to entirely too much, that I wasn't willing to risk it. And both of those deer that I wasn't able to shoot, they ultimately, one got poached and the other one confirmed poached, not slander poached. Like the guy got fined and everything.
Right.
The other one got caught in shotgun season. So that's how I know the score of that deer.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I've had some rough luck, and to me it seems like it's really, really rough luck. To other people, they may say, "Oh no, that's just that shit happens to me too."
Right.
I'm a person that I truly believe in you make your own luck.
Yep.
But I question that sometimes, right?
Right.
I've always been the type of person, hey, I'm in control of my own destiny. I create my own situations. But here lately, the last couple of years, I've had some external things that were beyond my control that I'm like, wow, what the heck, man? You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe that just happened. And
when you almost had it again this year, you almost had it again this year with your bow.
I know.
You know what I mean? It's
I mean, with the bow situation, lightning almost struck again. And I don't know if, like I said, man, I don't believe in, I have a hard time believing in fate.
Yep.
Probably because my past, law enforcement career,
Right.
That taught me that, what, bad things just happen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's all there is to it. But, maybe that was the thing I needed to go through, was somebody was testing me to see if I was willing to just nut it out.
Yeah.
And just keep grinding and keep grinding and keep grinding. And, I like to think of myself as a fighter, and, I will take some lucky breaks whenever I get them. I can tell you that right now.
That's right, man. Well, the other thing is too, man, it's like whenever you had mentioned, in like years past, like that stuff would happen, it would have got you bent out of shape and, made you mad, and, kind of ruined your day and stuff like that. It's like, so much of, I kind of just kept remembering this myself when I was in the tree stand today, this past 2 weeks, was just, if you can't do anything else, be positive, because if you don't think you're going to kill a deer in the set that you're in, you're not going to. And if you honestly don't feel like you're going to kill a deer that's in the set that you're in, or you can't kill a deer in the set that you're in, then why are you in it? You know what I mean? That's right. It's like, I tried to kind of tell myself those things. Like whenever I would when it would get slow and I'd be like, man, am I in the right tree? It's like, and I'd kind of question myself and be like, do you feel like you can kill a deer in this set? And I'd be like, yes, I think I can. I have, you know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, I can. Do you think you'll see deer? You know what I mean? Yes, I think I will. You know what I mean? So I was just trying to kind of keep a positive mind frame during the portions where the grind was getting tough. And not let small things because dude, hunting mobile and stuff like that. It's like when you go to hang a set and you're in a place where you're not familiar, it's like hanging a set's just a pain. It's just a pain. You know what I mean? It's just like, nothing goes right. You have to end up, working around branches, it's like I'm on public. So it's like, I can't trim, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm trying to work around branches, trying to climb to a height that I can get a natural shooting lane. It's like, all those things, just, it takes you longer to get in than you want, you know what I mean? You're all sweaty when you do, you know what I mean? So it's just like all those things.
Yep.
But you just kind of have to stay positive and just realize, dude, you're not, it's hard to think about it this way, but it's like you're not going through anything different than any other bow hunters going through in whatever state, 2 states over today. You know what I mean? Like we're all having very common experiences, I guess is what I'm trying to say from that standpoint. And so just keep a good attitude, man. It makes it a lot easier.
You're right. And I mean, we hear those stories about the people who, I went and hung a stand and it was the first time I'd ever sat it. I didn't have any trail camera pictures of that buck and I shot a 190,
Right.
I had my buddy's bow that he'd loaned me for the week, and all my arrows were mixed matched in different lengths and different grains, and you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think those stories stand out to us just because they are so off the wall that's why they stand out. And that's just not the norm.
No.
I think everybody goes through a lot of struggles and has things. Now, I do think that sometimes there is things that are accidents and some that are incidents.
Yeah.
Accidents you can't avoid and incidents you can.
Yes.
But like you said, positivity, dude. Like, that's the biggest thing that I'm really, really trying to work on in my life as a whole, is just staying more upbeat, staying more positive, not looking for a pity party. Dude, I'm telling you, a career in law enforcement I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy.
Right.
Especially when you're in like a real city.
Yeah.
And when I say real city, I don't mean that in a derogatory way for, against small towns. But right. I'm saying when you're in a city that has rapes and murders and burglars and fatalities and drugs and all that kind of stuff, that are a daily occurrence or a weekly occurrence, then it just wears on you. And you just start to get really, really jaded and cynical, and it's real easy the smallest thing happens and you're like, screw it. You know what I mean? But it's taken me a couple of years to try to get removed from that. And it's something I have to tell myself every single day, to try to stay positive and make the most out of it. And I'm like, I I'm sure this is happening to somebody else right now too, and they got through it, so I can get through it. You know?
Yep, exactly, man. That, and at the end of the day, man, it's deer hunting and it's supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? It's the other thing I think we have to remind
that's the
ourselves.
other thing.
You know, you know, I think you and I, you know, and I'm sure a lot of folks out there that are listening, it's like this type of stuff is important to us, you know, so we put a lot of time and effort and, you know,
sure.
Some of us, you know, spend less time, you know, or time away from our families for it and stuff like that because it's a passion that we have that we want to pursue. And, you know, and it's really easy to kind of, you know, have the wrong priority or place it in its wrong priority. Right. And so just remembering that, you know, my friendship with you or Chad or anybody, you know, isn't going to be determined by the caliber of deer that I kill or don't kill, or if I see deer or I don't see deer or anything like that. It's really it's really insignificant in the grand scheme of things. You know, I think that's the one thing you always just kind of have to remember, you know, and I try to remember that because, look, I get worked up just the same as anybody else where it's like, you know, if I'm having a bad run and, you know, and I'm not getting done what I want to get done. And it used to really bother me and I'd put pressure on myself to try to do something. And now I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to go hunt and have fun. And I get to see deer and that's awesome. And, you know, if I play my cards right, I might get to shoot one. You know what I mean? But sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that, you know, and it's like, and you have to, you know, because I know, you know, hunting with Chad and, you know, and being good friends with you, it's like there's, you know, we each have like goals of like what we want to do, you know what I mean, as far as like the type of animal we want to harvest and for different reasons, right? And if I stick to those goals, you know, or you do or whomever does, it's like, you know, that might just not play out because you're increasing the challenge, you know what I mean, to a degree, right? And that's not for everybody. That's not saying that, you know, my goal was to kill a 3.5-year-old in Ohio, right? And I saw one 3.5-year-old on the hoof that I was willing to shoot and just didn't get an opportunity, right? Didn't get a shot opportunity. That's not saying that anybody who kills a 2.5 or a 1.5 that is any less of a hunter than I am. Like, that's not it at all. You know what I mean? If that's their goal and they achieve it, then I'm happy for them, you know? But for me, it's like my goal is that, and I'm willing to accept the failures if I don't achieve that goal, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm comfortable with it and it doesn't ruin my hunts, you know, and it's taken me a little bit of time to figure that out, I guess is what I'm trying to say, you know? So,
well, and you know, and one other little part of this deal that I'll point out that was so awesome, you know, filming your hunts is never easy, right? And getting quality footage of your hunt, you know, is even tougher. You know, a lot of times I've had people over the years that have lended a hand to run some cameras, and I've had some great camera operators before, and then I've had some very new camera operators, and it's not a knock at them. I mean, they've always been straight up honest. As soon as we got in the tree, they're like, okay, so which one's the power button?
Right.
Which one's the record button?
Right. And
you're like, oh, this is not going to go good.
Right.
But my buddy Billy's a good camera operator, and you know, anytime a deer comes in, I'm the type of person that when I go to reach for my bow, like I get a little nervous. If I don't reach for my bow, let's say I was not targeting a 3-year-old and a 3-year-old buck comes and walks right underneath my stand, it's cool and it's exciting and I love it, but it doesn't get my heart pumping like, oh my gosh, this is about to happen. But even if a doe walks past me and I go to reach for my bow and that trigger, that switch goes off, or it's like, okay, I'm going to attempt to kill this deer, then I'm like that's when the heart really gets pumping, you know?
Yep.
So my heart was beating like crazy watching this buck run across this field, licking his chops. I mean, he's putting on a show, dude. He's just licking, slapping his nose, you know, and his mouth back and forth. And so my heart's pumping. I'm reaching, you know, I reach for my bow. As soon as that deer started to turn into the timber, like we lost him for a split second when he went from the field to the timber. You know, there's like 3 seconds where I think Billy kind of lost him for a second. And then when he picked him right back up and focused on him, I can hear Billy over my shoulder going, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like so relaxing to me.
Right.
Where I'm like, okay, I don't have to think about the camera now.
Right.
All I have to worry about is my job. Because, you know, and like I said, in other times, you know, I'm at full draw, and I've still been like, okay, hit the button that says AF on the camera. That'll focus. Like, I've had to do that at full draw before.
Right.
So I didn't have to worry about the camera stuff. I just got to be the hunter. You know what I mean? And it's almost like it wasn't a hunt that was being filmed. And then as soon as he got ready to step into the shooting lane, I hear Billy over my shoulder say, kill him.
Nice. Yeah.
And it wasn't take a shot at him, throw carbon his direction.
Right.
You know, come to full draw.
Right.
It just screw all the BS. Just get down to the nitty gritty of what the task at hand is.
Right.
Kill him.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, for a split second, I turned into Rambo in the tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I came to full draw, like, there was no doubt in my mind. I wasn't thinking about the buck from last November 8th. I wasn't thinking about anything. I wasn't thinking about anything other than making sure that that broadhead went right through the best part of the vitals to make the fastest, most ethical, violent kill that I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, and so many people are like, oh, you know, I want to harvest the animal.
Right.
And I understand what people are saying by that. I understand what they're attempting to do when they say that.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a violent sport.
Yep.
You're taking a sharpened carbon steel broadhead and sending it in the direction of heart and lungs.
Yep.
Like, you are trying to mortally wound this animal. And in doing so, you're doing it in the fastest way to cause the least suffering to the animal. I'm not saying that, or I'm not saying that that's not what we're trying to do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're killing the animal. And to hear him just say, kill him, that was the best shot of confidence that anybody could have ever given me. And it was so nice to snap out of this little funk rut that I had put myself in for no other reason than my own mental screwing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%, man. And the thing is, too, it's like, it is what it is. I mean, it's like we are trying to kill a deer. You know, it's called what it is. You know, it's like there's,
Yep.
You know, just because you call it by its rightful name doesn't mean that it's any less politically correct, if you will. And I understand the whole harvest thing. And look, it's like I'll use that term depending on the audience that I have. You know what I mean? That if I'm
Correct.
talking,
Yes.
if I'm talking to people at work about hunting or whatever, it's like I'll use the term harvest or whatever. You know, if some of the public that I'm hunting around here in the suburbs and stuff like that, or you know, in suburbia. You know, if I run into anybody and they ask me, you know, if I'm dragging a deer out, it's like I'll even use the word dispatch. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of like something that's that works.
Oh, yeah.
that I've learned.
Uh-huh.
But you know, whenever we're on, you know, our show here and I'm talking to other hunters, it's like we're trying to kill deer. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to get done. Doesn't mean that we respect them any less, and it doesn't mean that we want to make it, you know, as quick and as lethal as we possibly can.
Yeah,
that's the job at hand.
Well, the respect part comes from the hours of practice.
Yep.
The hours of tuning your bow, weighing our arrows, double checking our arrows, double checking the vanes, making sure that we have a very sharp broadhead that's tightened down all the way to the arrow. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that's where the respect comes from for the animal, is to make sure that we can do the most ethical and have the fastest kill we can possibly make. Yeah, so it's like I said, man, it was just one of those things, man, when, you know, and he afterwards, he's like, man, he's like, when we watched it on the playback, he's like, hey, surely, you know, you can edit that out or whatever. I'm like, edit it out? I'm like, no, that's staying on the video footage.
Right. That's
staying there. I might even close caption it at the bottom of the screen too.
Right. Yeah.
So he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. I went from 100, like stress level of 100 to 0 when you said that.
Right.
So I said, no, that's staying in there. And it shows that it wasn't just me. You know, it was a team effort. You know, up in the tree making that happen. So super, Super awesome.
So not that it matters, but I'm curious if you put tape on this guy.
I did not.
You did not.
I meant to. I don't get really hung up on score. I mean, if I shot like a 180-inch buck, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to want to put a tape to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
But eventually I always get around to throwing a tape on him at some point, just for my own curiosity.
Yeah.
And we, Billy and I did some photos the next morning. Mm-hmm. We were both so tired talking about grinding and hustling and whatnot. After that night, we both came home, and I think I was on one couch, he was on another, and we were attempting to watch Sports Center, and both of us were just out. Right. It was like 9:30.
Right.
But so the next day, we took some photos, and then he had to leave. He was heading down to Missouri to go on a rifle hunt. He had never been on a rifle hunt before, so he went to go do that. And so he left, and then I'm like, oh, how exhausting. I was like, man, that's amazing. And then, of course, I'm getting the congratulatory texts and messages, and I was trying my damnedest to make sure that I responded to every single person. Thank you. I was very, very appreciative that other people were happy about my success. And then the taxidermist was like, hey, I'm going to be here if you want to go ahead and bring that thing on up here. I'm like, heck yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So I went ahead and caped him real fast, and I'm not a taxidermist, so I cape up to the chin, or the base of the chin and neck, and then I stop,
Right.
I let him do the eyes and do all that stuff.
Right.
So I threw him in my truck, and I hauled to the taxidermist, dropped him off. I got home, and one of my buddies from back home, he called me. He's like, hey, what did he score? I'm like, dang it, I never did score him. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess him to be somewhere like 145 to 152.
Right. Nice. Yeah, he's a great deer.
Somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, he's a great deer, man. I mean, yeah, it was, he's, I don't know, man. Like, he just seems very symmetrical and even and just pretty. You know what I mean? Like, whenever you...
Yeah, he's a real pretty buck. He had very, very impressive G3s.
Yes, he did.
His G2s were a little weak, but his G3s were just phenomenal threes. And, and it's funny, too, because when I saw him from a distance, he looked like I couldn't see his antlers that well, from 300 yards away.
Right.
But even with binos, I'm like, well, he's a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I never really looked at the antlers anymore. I'm like, he's a mature buck. He's coming this way. He's licking his chops. He's putting on a show. I told Billy, I said, when he stepped into the shooting lane and I came to full draw, if he would have been a 100-inch deer, he was still going to die.
Yep. Well, it had all the things, man. It was the full experience. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
So
heck, the fact that he was a rack buck, that was a bonus.
Right.
He was a 4-year-old that was going to die.
Yeah. So,
period.
So you
know what I mean?
Exactly. So you have a couple other tags left in Iowa, right?
I do. So I have my landowner's archery tag, and I can only harvest a buck on my personal ground. So
right.
I have to do the killing on 22 acres here.
Yep.
And then I have a late season archery Iowa tag that comes in after shotgun season, which can be an easy tag to fill with a muzzleloader on a standing bean field.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a pretty tough tag to fill without a food source. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's just so daggone cold,
right
after December 15th. So that tag is good like December 16th through like January 8th or 9th or something like that. It's about 3 weeks.
Right. Okay.
I have this came together last minute, totally last minute. I had no idea I was going on this until about 3 weeks ago. I am going to an outfitter in Illinois. I've never been to an outfitter before in my life. It's not an outfitter where the guide sits in the tree with you. They literally show you a map and show you where all the tree stands are, and you pick your tree stand, and that's where you go hunt that day.
Right.
But it is a hunt through Sitka. Sitka is sending myself and another one of the Sitka ambassadors, Brock Bolt from Wisconsin. They're sending us to West Central Illinois, a place called Performance Outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go there and hunt November 20th through November 26th.
Nice.
Come home for a few days. And at the start of Iowa's shotgun season, I can't legally hunt. So none of my tags are valid. My landowner's tag's not valid. No archery tag is valid whatsoever during shotgun season.
Okay.
Even if you're willing to wear orange or not, doesn't matter. So during that time frame, I can either sit at my house and go crazy and wonder about what the shotgun guys are doing,
Right.
or I can just get out of the area completely. And I'm heading down to South Texas on a no fence chunk of ground down there, and I'm going to try my luck at spot and stock rattling with a bow.
Nice. Yeah, I remember you calling me and telling me about the Illinois hunt. That's going to be a cool hunt, man. They got some hammers out there for sure. And then that Texas hunt's going to be pretty cool, man. It's going to be different, so that'll be.
I've never hunted with an outfitter. I don't know what to expect. There was a time frame in my life where I was like, I'll never go do an outfitted hunt,
Mm-hmm.
And very naive of me, when I first got into hunting, I thought all outfitters were what I saw on TV, which was Texas plantation, high fence ranches. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I thought that's what an outfitter was like a preserve.
Yep.
So I was like, I'll never go do that. But, if it's 100% free range, heck yeah, I'll go.
Yeah. I'm the same way, man. It's like I'm at that point where, I don't really have a lot of interest in doing it. If there was an opportunity to, I would totally go. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The one place I would consider is just our buddy Donnie Wilson, out in Ohio, out in Adams County, and he's the head.
I want to hunt. I want to go hunt that place so bad.
I was actually thinking, I was like, man, I thought, how cool would it be if you and I actually went and did a hunt with Donnie together to go do that in Ohio? That would be rad. I was actually thinking that on this trip. I was like, man, I'd like to go out there, get John, and see if we could actually get out there 1 year at the same time. It'd be kind of cool. Because they kill some giants out there, man. They kill hammers every year.
Well, and not only is the area very conducive for growing big deer, but Donnie's a phenomenal deer hunter, a phenomenal bow hunter.
Yeah.
He's really good at locating big buck bedding areas and big buck travel corridors and stuff like that. So I would love to go hunt with him. I mean, I think they've got about a 25 to 30% success rate, going out there, which on a free range, non-high fence trophy area like that, where there are some big uns running around, that's actually really good,
Oh yeah.
And guys have seen a lot more deer. I'm talking probably 25, 30, 35% success.
Yeah.
Encounter percentage is way high.
Yeah. No, they definitely have some hammers out there. Last year, that public I was hunting was not too far away from where they're at. And actually, Chad just sent me a picture that a buddy of his sent him from that same piece of public we were hunting last year. He was there this year and killed just a freaking hammer. I mean, his tines look like baseball bats. Like literally each one of his tines looked like one of those little Louisville Slugger baseball bats, like that much girth, like all the way out. It's kind of ridiculous. So they definitely grow big deer down there. And it's significant hill country, super thick, nasty, deep hollows and steep ridges. Everything you'd want or a buck would want to grow old and get big. But my plan, man, is really I'm going to continue to grind it out here in PA. Get after these swamp deer, try to figure them out because they've managed to disappear. So I got to figure out what my plan is in the swamp. And then, like I said earlier, I'm going to head back out to Ohio over Thanksgiving and try my hand at trying to catch up to the big one that I had on camera here before their shotgun season comes in. It'll be that Monday after I leave. So I'll hunt, I think, whatever it is, the 26th, 7th or something like that. the Friday, Saturday, Sunday after Thanksgiving, and then that Monday their shotgun season comes in. So that's my game plan, man. And hopefully we can have a twofer. Hopefully we'll both kill deer this year. It'd be nice.
Oh, heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I feel like the best part of the season is it's really just getting going, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was hoping my Kentucky hunt turned out a little differently this year, but hey, it is what it is.
Right. I'm interested to do that hunting over Thanksgiving, just because I know that's actually a time frame that I've heard Don Higgins talk about. That's his favorite time to hunt. If he's going to hunt the rut, he prefers that like second half of the rut, when the way he kind of described it. And I'd love to have him on at some point and to kind of talk about this, but is, those first set of does cycle in whatever time, like, at the beginning, first week of November, they start to cycle in depending on what their breeding dates are, the different doe families and stuff like that. And, what he says is that like that, Thanksgiving time frame is really like that 30-ish days post the first cycle, when the early does should be starting to cycle back in. And so, but now your doe population that is breedable is much smaller, because a portion of those does who came in, when they all came in their first cycle, got bred in the first cycle. So now the competition for them is that much higher. And then, like what he talks about is that's when the big deer really get active, because now it's like there are only a handful of does and they really have to move now to find them, so I'm interested to see what happens. I'm curious to see if like aggressive tactics work any better. So it's like, does grunting work even better during that time frame? Does rattling work even better during that time frame? So for me, it's going to be
I've got a couple of guys in Iowa that have always told me November 15th to November 22nd is their favorite 7-day block of the entire season.
Really? Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that prior to next year, before I book my my trip to come out, so I can pick the right handful of weeks to come out.
I can tell you, November 8th. That's 2 years in a row. November 8th has been crazy for me. So
yeah,
November 8th will be a very, very hard day for me not to have in my top days.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see how this year plays out too.
For sure. I always like, I've had good action, I guess you could say. The 3rd through, like, my favorite, I guess, 7-day stretch is like the 3rd to the 10th. Is usually, the time frame that I like. But all right, man. Well, I think with that, man, I think we can go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. We got some buck stories. We got some grinding it out. We got some plans for both you and I for the rest of the rut and the rest of the season, as long as it takes me. So help me God, I'll be in a tree stand, and hopefully get something done. And hopefully we'll have some more good deer stories as we continue to go through the deer season. So congratulations again, brother. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And
appreciate it.
And I'm sure you and I'll be talking, but good luck in Illinois and in Texas.
Yep, for sure. Thank you very much. And likewise, get something down, get something ground checked here.
I'm going to try to shoot them. Shoot them. All right, that's it. We're out. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. We'd, of course, like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to deliver each one of these episodes directly to your mobile devices. We'd be super appreciative if you would do those two things for us. And hell, while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram. Before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Tecomate Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, Trophy Taker Rests, and Dead Downwind. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
Makes me steal. I could show you through the door. I ain't welcome anymore. A long time coming, if it all. It takes a special knowing to call a fall. image heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers, but I